listening to the Terrific Teacherpreneur, a podcast for teachers looking to grow a successful online business. Your host, Alex, was able to transform her Teachers Pay Teachers store from a small side hustle into a profitable full-time business. She now helps other teachers do the same. Listen along for actionable tips and helpful wisdom about business and marketing as a teacherpreneur. Here's your host, Alex.
Hey there, welcome to this week's episode of the Terrific Teacherpreneur podcast. Now, in this episode, I want to advise you to do something that a lot of people outside of the TPT world do. I guess I would call it cashing in on something or like milking it for all it's worth, maybe. You've probably heard of that idea before. But basically, I was sitting in my living room the other day with my daughter, Lily. And, I was going through some books and I was going to read her a book and I'd got this pile of library books. I just borrow like baby books from the library sometimes because I don't want to buy them all the time. And there were two books. One was The Very Hungry Caterpillar's First Spring. And the other one was We're Going on a Bear Hunt, My First ABC. And I just picked them up and then I looked today, I rolled my eyes and I was like, seriously? Because The Hungry Caterpillar's First Spring was just one of many that I've recently borrowed where I feel like it has the word The Hungry Caterpillar and then it's just something random. Spring, winter, whatever. And then it is the little hungry caterpillars in the story going through and it's talking about spring. So fair enough. But the next one that was we're going on a bear hunt and it was like ABCs. And you just went through and it just said A, apple, B, box, C, caterpillar, or whatever, I don't know. And it went through just ABCs with random words and pictures. And I finished reading it and I said to Dale, I was like, there is nothing about we're going on a bear hunt in here. There might have been one picture of a bear at some point. That was it. I was like, this is nothing to do with that book, We're Going on a Bear Hunt. And I just, it made me realize how many baby books I'd read recently that were just some random spin-off of a famous book. And instantly in my head, I thought, oh my goodness, this is those things people do where they just cash in on something that is working. Apparently they just write a book called The Very Hungry Caterpillar in the 80s or whatever, and it's a hit. And then they just spend the next 30 years coming out with everything else that's caterpillar toys. Yeah, we have one of those, a rattle that's a hungry caterpillar. Random books. And they just put a picture of the hungry caterpillar in the book. And they just milk it for all it's worth. They just cash in so hard on that one thing. And that ABC one was just ridiculous because it was just nothing to do with the bear hunt. And I just thought that is just getting really far-fetched now. But as ridiculous as it was, and as much as I was kind of laughing at it, they're making a lot of money from it. The people behind these companies and stuff and those authors and stuff, they're making a mint from doing this expanded range of all these various things to do with these books. So can I really complain and blame them for it? Because they're just being smart business people, really. And so got me thinking about TPT. And then that is my tip for this week in this episode is, I guess I want you to channel your Very Hungry Caterpillar, We're Going on a Bear Hunt business vibes. And if you have something in your store that is a bestseller, that is doing well, that is performing well and people want it, that's my advice for you this week. I want you to cash in on it. I want you to milk it for all it's worth. You might already be doing this. Many people just naturally do this anyway, but you make a resource, you see that it's selling like hotcakes, and so you decide, how can I capitalize on this? And so you might already be doing this, but if you aren't, this is my advice. You look at the resource that's doing well and you decide, how can I capitalize on this? So one idea is to do something to the actual resource. You can update it, make it bigger, add more to it, up price slightly, make more money. That's one thing you can do. But you can, like these authors are doing, is you can just create more products using that same idea or based on that same idea of that bestseller, having it kind of connect. So one idea is you just, you create the resource and then you just create another one that's very similar. And it's just a version 2 or a set 2 or a number 2, it's the same thing, but it's nuclear part and it's just slightly different. I don't know, it's just, here's more of what I've made basically. And there's another one if you want it kind of thing. The other thing you can do is just kind of create almost like a product line from it. Whatever you've made, I'm sure there's a way that you can make it seasonal or a different subject area or standard or topic or, product type or something, but like similar, but it's somehow different. And you just make this giant product line from it. Maybe an example is what you created was some reading passages and, you decide you're going to create spring reading passages or something. I don't know. Maybe it was like a fraction task card game and you're like, oh, people really like that. Why don't I create these task card games for all of the different areas of math? Something like that. So you create a product line and you just keep making more, bunch of products. And then ultimately, this would be the great thing you want to do is you bundle them all together and you have a big bundle that, connects to this bestseller. I think that's like the kind of the way to go is just to keep making resources that are kind of growing from that original idea in any way you can. Obviously, we don't want to get so extreme that we're making random things that really don't connect to it. Hello, ABC book. We're going on about how we don't want it to be so far-fetched, but you can just find a way to make it connect somehow to use that idea. And what you're basically doing is you are seeing what your audience wants and you're just giving them more. They're saying, I like what you did here. I want more. And so you're just basically serving them, and there's nothing wrong with that. You have to kind of analyze though what it is they wanted, what it is they really liked in that bestseller. And if you look at your bestsellers, you usually can tell. It's usually quite an obvious thing. It might be something like it's just not been done before. It's just really original and it's not saturated and it's a great cool thing that you've invented. Maybe it's just really needed. Maybe other sellers aren't making it because it's a lot of effort, but maybe it's just something teachers really need. Maybe it's just like fun and cute and engaging and your students just love it and it's just a really great thing for classrooms. It might be something to do with the actual idea behind the resource. And so by all means, give your audience more if that's what they like. But it might also be to do with the actual resource. Maybe you've created a type of resource, something digital or something like that. Or maybe it's the size. Maybe it's like this, it's got 50 pages and it's going to cover the whole year. And so teachers just like, wow, this is game-changing stuff. I've often looked at my bestsellers and I can kind of pinpoint that there's a lot of value in some of them. It really does serve beyond just like one worksheet or one lesson. So I can see why a buyer might like it. But yeah, you want to look and kind of diagnose what it is that is making it a bestseller and then see if that will help you capitalize on it. It will help you kind of design the rest of the product line or similar products that branch from that, because you can say, oh, okay, I can clearly see that people liked the value I provided here, or people liked that topic or whatever. And then you can kind of, keep going from there. So definitely take a look. So that is my action item for you on this one this week. This is going to be a quick episode, is just to take a second, go into your My Product Statistics or your dashboard or just your storefront, whatever. Look at your bestsellers. Just take a good hard look at them for a second and ask yourself, why do you honestly think they are selling so well? Why are they your bestsellers? What do you think it is? Maybe take some notes down, just like brain dump, why you think it's doing so well. And there's definitely a reason for it, I'm sure. And then take another second to sit and think, if you aren't already, or even if you are, like, how can you do this more? How can I capitalize on this? How can I really milk this for its worth and just keep going with it? Like, how can I make more? I actually see people whose entire stores are very much almost built around their bestseller. You can tell that they've created something, and it's like a certain game or some kind of cool concept. It clearly did well. It ranks well. It sells well. It's their bestseller, whatever. And then they've just continued creating that type of thing just for years. Like their entire store is just full of that type of resource, and they've just done various grade levels, subject areas, different topics and standards and versions of it, and they've just carried on. They're like, I found what works, I'm just going to keep going with it. And this kind of is something you can do in your business in general. Maybe it's not one particular resource, maybe it's a type of resource or a certain product line as a whole, and you're like, people like this kind of stuff. I'm just going to keep doing it. I'm just going to build my business around it, build my niche around it, build my store around it, and just keep creating this stuff. And that's all I'll do from now onwards. You can certainly do that. This can be like a one-off thing, or it can be, the future of your business, basically. But whatever you do, don't just sit there and enjoy the sales from a bestseller and then just move on to the next thing. Like, oh, people love my unit of work that I created. It's like a science unit and people really liked it. Okay, cool. Well, anyways, I'm going to move on and start creating some grammar worksheets. Like, no, go and keep going with that science stuff. Make more units or something, because people clearly like it. So don't waste the opportunity here. Go and cash in on it. Channel your inner Eric Carle and just keep going with it. That's what I wanted to share today in this episode. Just be sure to cash in on your bestsellers because it really could be money-making stuff. That's all I wanted to share for today, but I do have a quick favor to ask. If you've been enjoying the podcast in general and specifically like this episode and what I share basically, be sure to leave a review. It always means a lot to know that you're enjoying the podcast. So, rate it on your platform, but also be sure to share it with others, let anyone else know if you know any other sellers or new sellers or other teachers that are considering selling on TPT, be sure to share the podcast with them and let them know. It's always great to get new people into my community. I always love connecting with new sellers. So be sure to do that. Recommend it if you'd like to. But I hope that you have a terrific day.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Terrific Teacherpreneur. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and review on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate that effort. Come back for more actionable tips and helpful wisdom in the next episode with your host, Alex. Until then.